Alaikum wa rahmatullahi barakatuh. I pray everyone is having a blessed day today. Again, I think a couple of weeks ago, I was just letting you know that we had a beautiful day here. So again, it is beautiful, alhamdulillah. And yes, so today's episode is going to be about self-sabotage, and the reason why I felt like it was such an important thing to talk about is because the theme that we are going with this month, inshallah, in our community is called change. And one of the things about change is when we are going through first of all, change is the only constant thing that keeps happening, right? It's only the one consistent thing that keeps happening. But in regards to the concept of change is when we are about to go through a transition of bettering the self, there's so many things which seem to block us, right? From outside of us and a lot of the times from inside of us. And this is the reason why I felt it was such an important topic to talk about today, which is self-sabotage. But before we dive into the episode, just a couple of quick reminders for you all. So the month of May has been pretty intense. We have had so many opportunities. We've had events. We launched our official community, the Writers Block. Alhamdulillah, we have our sisters there, and it's been phenomenal. So with one of the announcements, sorry, that was my daughter in the background. They're watching Winnie the Pooh. They might come any minute, inshallah, and I have snacks for them just in case. So FYI. Yes, so one of the announcements is that the ICNA Poetry Slam is going to be coming, inshallah, and it's going to be happening on, inshallah, Memorial Day. So if you want to compete, then please submit your poems. All the details are going to be here below, inshallah. And we also have the book awards ceremony as well, inshallah. The submissions for that are open right now, and they're going to be closing at the end of May. Okay, so I know a lot of you have reached out asking me questions and details. Please continue to ask any more questions that you have about this, but it is an amazing opportunity. We really want to platform the voices of not just authors, people who have published with us, but also people who are published with other publishing houses who are really just doing amazing work. Muslim women, right? It's all about Muslim women voices. So yes, and with no further ado, we will jump into today's topic, inshallah. And as we said, it is self-sabotage. Now, where do we begin, right? There are so many ways that self-sabotage can show up for us in our lives, but also in our writing. And some of the ways that it can show up in actual experience with writing is when we, for example, feel like as if we want to procrastinate, right? That might be a form of self-sabotage. There's also the feeling of perfectionism. That's another way self-sabotage shows up. It can be so sneaky. It can show up in so many other ways, such as feeling this rush of energy, adrenaline, that you just want to work so much that you forget the actual point of all the work that you're doing and why you're working in the first place, right? And I know this very well because this is exactly what I tend to do. When I am going through a self-sabotage moment, I'll go into this almost this frenzied state of I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do all of these things, as many things as possible. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, wait, I didn't actually do the thing that I wanted to do in the first place. And then I realize I'm like, oh, self-sabotage, hello, you have been here and you've been very sneaky with me today. So and we're going to talk a little bit about how we can hopefully have a few ways to overcome that feeling of self-sabotage and also overcome the presence of self-sabotage as well. So bismillah. Now, the first and most important thing to remember or to understand is why it happens in the first place. And I'm not going to go too sciencey in this, but the most important thing that you need to remember, I need to remember, is that our brains are wired. In fact, our whole nervous system, our brain is part of our nervous system, right? Our nervous system is wired to love regularity, to love familiarity, to love what it knows. And these things are things which are familiar to us, and our brain loves the familiar. And sometimes that is even to the extent of things which are not good for us. And a lot of the times, some of the relationships we might be in, we might notice a reoccurring pattern of similar relationships in the past which were very difficult, but you just keep seeing to have that same relationship with another person who is just like the other person, and it's just repeating. And why is that? And most of the time it's because our brain is so used to certain patterns of behavior, even if they are bad for us, that it will keep doing the same things because it feels safe in that. And this is actually this is actually the main reason why it goes into this mode of self-sabotage, right? Why we go into this mode of self-sabotage, because ultimately what our nervous system is trying to do is to protect us. It's trying to keep us safe, even if that place of familiarity is no longer good for us, right? So that's the most important thing to remember, is because there's this fear of change, right? And now I want to bring in actually the topic that we spoke about last time, which was all about our authentic voice. And the reason why I'm bringing that in is because sometimes we might ask the question, how do we recognize that this is actually self-sabotage, or if this is just a means of me moving on to a new direction, right? Maybe this feeling that I'm feeling, this resistance that I'm feeling towards change, is trying to tell me that I should go this way instead of this way. And that's such an amazing question. And alhamdulillah, thank God, it was actually unplanned, but the last topic was all about the authentic author voice, right? And the way we can recognize the difference between the self-sabotage voice and the authentic author voice is that the authentic author voice is something, like we said, it's, you don't feel that urgency, you feel that expansive energy, and all around you just feel really good, right? Whereas self-sabotage, because it is rooted in fear of change, it is the total opposite of the authentic author voice. So if you're questioning whether, you know, this is your authentic voice giving you a new direction, but you're feeling this rush and this urgency and this constriction inside of your chest, and you're making all of these decisions, and you're going a little bit full of adrenaline, and you're doing all of these other things, and you're in a high stress state, and that's a pretty clear sign that it's probably self-sabotage, right? Now, the reason why self-sabotage shows up, just one more reason before we go into how we can, inshallah, overcome that and face it, is one of the reasons why is because we either have two main fears, two core fears, right? If we go towards this direction of change, this direction of growth, right? If that change is growth, then we can either have this fear of success, right? We've all heard this before, I'm sure. This fear of success, right? Or we can have this fear of failure. And both of them are terrifying. They're so scary, the fear of success and the fear of failure. But the most interesting thing is that both of them actually come from just one fear, one core fear. And like we said, it's the fear that our brain is terrified of us going through, and that is fear of change, right? And that is why sometimes the feeling of self-sabotage and the symptoms of it coming up in our lives is so powerful, and it is so overwhelming, and it feels like it's the real thing, like this is something I'm not supposed to be doing, and there's all this resistance, and maybe I should just go a different direction. And that's absolutely normal, because your body is doing everything it can to keep you safe and keep you familiar, even if that isn't good for you. So what can we do about it, right? What can we do about overcoming self-sabotage, which can show up specifically in our writing? Now let's bring it back to our writing, right? Now say, for example, we are sitting down and you're getting ready to type, and you are typing, and you got this amazing story going, your fingers are like fire, and then these thoughts begin to come to you like, okay, that line was just so bad. This is such a, I don't know what I'm doing. Should I even be doing this? And all of these other things, right? You can probably think of them if you've had writer's block. Self-sabotage, maybe. It could be other things as well, but that could be one thing, self-sabotage. And then it's just so many overwhelming feelings, perfectionism, procrastination. We said this in the beginning at the top of the episode. So the first and foremost important thing is that normally just before we're about to hit that level of leveling up, right, that level of inshallah growth, you'll reach this feeling of plateau sometimes, and you'll feel like, okay, I've been trying this one thing for so long and I just kind of had a block, and then it comes in the form of self-sabotage, like just stop now. Maybe you've tried enough and you've moved back. Okay, that was a very detailed thing, but the point is we all have our own self-sabotaging patterns of behavior, right? But the first and foremost thing is to recognize it. Recognize that this could be self-sabotage, and look at the patterns of behavior. Is there like a big change happening right now in your writing? It could be that you are almost finished with that final draft, or you are getting very close, or it could be that you are at the stage of publishing your book, right? But then this feeling comes like, oh, I just don't feel like doing this one thing that I could be doing that could make my book really, really, really good, because I just don't feel like it. And sometimes, like, again, that could be self-sabotage, where this feeling of fatigue, even exhaustion, like I said, it's sneaky. It comes in so many ways. And so the first thing is to recognize it. And that in itself is such a powerful thing. If I were just to leave right now and just say, just recognize that you're in that behavior, that probably would be enough, because what happens is when we become aware of a negative behavior, what happens is we begin to ask ourselves the question subconsciously, what can I do to change it? Even if it's not on our tongues, or we're not consciously going around asking it, subconsciously our brain is already like, okay, how can I solve this problem now? Because our brains are wonderful. They're just so beautiful, mashallah. That's why the computer is a model which is based on the human brain, because Allah made our brains and our nervous systems perfectly. So we're asking the questions to, you know, how can I help myself through this process? And now the first thing, like I said, is to recognize it. Recognize that this might be self-sabotage, the procrastination, the perfectionism, the many okay. I am so sorry about that. So that was a reminder. I'm going to have to be going very soon, inshallah, to jump on a call. But so the self-sabotaging behavior, the very first important thing is to recognize it. The second thing is to be gentle with ourselves and take small steps. Take small steps, even if it's just one small thing that we're doing every day or even every week, taking our time for our bodies to get used to, okay, you know, this is something small. This is near my routine, and I'm used to it. I'm doing this small thing. It's not so scary. So then when it becomes a big thing, inshallah, you've kind of weaned yourself into that process of your body getting used to this new change that is happening to us in our lives. And with that, inshallah, we're going to end this episode. If you want to find out a little bit more about the announcements that we made at the beginning of this episode, I know it was a super duper short episode, but we will definitely type everything you need to know at the bottom of this, and we would really appreciate if you're listening to this on a podcast to leave us a review and send me your questions. How does self-sabotage show up for you, right? I would love to know. Yes, and now we're going to end the episode and put our hands on our hearts, and we're going to say, inshallah, my voice has power. My voice has power. And inshallah, we're going to believe it. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everyone have a blessed, blessed day.